Our friends to the south got a little spared there. Still a couple inches here and there, but hope everybody's doing well at home. Hope your commutes home yesterday were all safe and sound. Be careful out there still on the roads. It's a little slushy. There was still some snow accumulation coming down today. We just want to make sure everybody is safe and sound there. And as you probably saw yesterday, if you're locked into Fox 9, we have wall-to-wall weather coverage always, and we will continue to have that today. In fact, Ian Leonard will be joining our show at about 4:20 today, so be on the lookout for that. But we have a very packed show to bring to you all today. But before I do that, I want to welcome in our executive producer, Paul Milgate. Paul, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I
feel like I've finally earned my Minnesota badge.
How's that?
Because I've been spending the last couple of mornings shoveling out my driveway and the path to our door. It's been the last couple of winters when I've been here, I've been like, oh, I just wish it would snow. I wish it would snow. And now I'm truly part of the Minnesotan club because every morning my alarm goes off and I have to head out and shovel out the driveway.
I don't think there's ever been one time where I've ever wished that it would snow. Certainly not yesterday. And I was talking to one of our colleagues here earlier this afternoon, and he even said that the snow that we're seeing here in early December is a little bit abnormal for the Twin Cities. Normally, it doesn't really get like this much snow. The cold weather, that's totally normal, but the snow accumulation a little bit off for the state of Minnesota, especially this early in the season.
Well, it checks out with my experience, but I've only been here a couple of years. But yeah, I've never seen snow in December like this before.
Yeah.
But that's only of like 5 winters, so that's not a great sample size. But I have seen this snow pretty much in a day in February one time. So I feel like. I don't know. Is this a precursor to that we're just going to have a really snowy winter?
Well, Ian Leonard yesterday kind of alluded to the fact that although the temperatures are really going to drop going into this weekend, he said the high temperature Saturday is only forecasted at 1 degree Fahrenheit, degree singular there. He did say that the rest of the month it is going to kind of warm up. Especially as we get to the Christmas time days on the calendar. So we'll see. I think that's a very legitimate question to ask Ian when he's in here in about 80 minutes from now to ask him what sort of the forecast is looking like for the rest of the winter season, and if this early snow is going to be a precursor to more snow to come here.
At least in a snowy Minnesotan winter, you can go out and do stuff. There's like all the things you can go and do, like snowshoeing, cross-country skiing.
Right.
It's when you have a cold, really bitterly cold Minnesotan winter and it's just grey, you're like, what are we going to do? Just sit inside the whole time? So I would rather the snow.
Yeah. It feels like too when it snows, it's not quite as cold either. I mean, even just yesterday, just getting into the car and kind of clearing it off, it wasn't that sort of like bitter cold that I felt last Thursday or that bitter cold that we're going to feel this Friday and Saturday.
This Friday and Saturday is going to be very, very chilly. It's the smack you in the face kind of cold when you step outside. No doubt.
So like I've said, Ian Leonard, he'll be coming on the show later today. That's just one of the great segments we've got going on. You've probably heard about these downtown public bathroom pushes in the city of Minneapolis. It's something that's been a problem for the downtown area for many years. Well, we're fortunate enough to talk to the president and CEO of the Downtown Minneapolis Council, Adam Dunnick, all about this to really get his insights onto what this push is going to be. There's about a $700,000 proposed amendment to Mayor Fry's 2026 annual budget for the city to push for these downtown restrooms. So we're going to see what the Downtown Council thinks about that and when we could potentially see these changes being implemented into downtown Minneapolis. Also, Ozempic, it's a drug that you probably heard of a million times via social media, via media coverage, via commercials that you see on television. There's, of course, a very catchy tune associated with Ozempic. I don't really know much. I did not know much about it prior to coming into work today. we're going to be talking to somebody, an assistant professor from the University of Minnesota's medical school, all about the drug. I'm going to be joined by Fox 9 senior executive producer Lori Fisher, who's very passionate about research around the drug. We're going to be learning more together about Ozempic, and I hope you all at home will be learning with us as well, because this is a drug, again, that you hear so much about. It gets so much publicity, both good and bad. We just want to learn more about it and kind of hear how it's affecting people and who really should be taking it.
Yeah, it should be said as well, the way that we got here to this segment today is a little bit of a roundabout.
Yes.
Obviously, Ozempic's been around for quite a bit. There's a lot of jokes about it going around, all the actors and superstars using it out in Hollywood.
Yep.
The thing that sort of piqued our interest was the fact that there is a company,
it's
and
crazy.
We will do this down the track. We'll do this as a full segment. We'll get there with it. But there's a company that is now releasing Ozempic for cats.
Insane.
So overweight pets.
Insane.
So that's how we got to there, and we thought before we get to cats and dogs and all the other pets that you might put on Ozempic, we thought, well, maybe we should just start at the beginning and actually talk about humans on Ozempic. So that's how we got there today. I think it's going to be a really fascinating conversation, because Grace Henry is going to jump in the chair, as you might know. Grace Henry is a type 1 diabetic. Mm-hmm. Ozempic was actually designed for diabetics, and so we're going to talk about the whole thing, from all of the side effect of the weight loss, but also what its initial purpose was, which is for those that need it, type 1 diabetics. So
no doubt.
A great segment.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very excited about that. And hopefully we could all collectively together learn more about Ozempic. Yesterday, we touched on the fact that yesterday to the day, so December 9th, 1965 was the premiere of A Charlie Brown Christmas on network television, meaning that this year, A Charlie Brown Christmas turned 60 years old. It's such a sensation. It's one of those iconic Christmas time movies that we all know and love. We're going to be very fortunate to be joined by the curator of the Charles Schulz Museum in beautiful Santa Rosa, California, Benjamin Clark, later in this hour around 3:45, to talk more about Charles Schulz, his Minneapolis and St. Paul roots, and A Charlie Brown Christmas, again, celebrating 60 years this year. Just incredible stuff there. And I'm really, really excited about that conversation. I absolutely love that film. And I think that Benjamin Clark is going to be able to give us some really good perspective on all things Charlie Brown Christmas. Plus, in the 4 o'clock hour, this new social media ban that's taking over Australia. Anybody under the age of 16, no access to social media whatsoever. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, they're off it. We're going to be talking to a social media expert in the 4 o'clock hour. And then, as promised, Ian Leonard around 4:20 p.m. to talk all about the latest with the winter weather that hit yesterday and the really cold, frigid temperatures that are coming our way this weekend. So that's today's edition of the Afternoon Shift. I'd like to promote our Instagram account. Won't you give us a follow at Afternoon Shift _Fox 9. So much good content and programming coming out of that Instagram account every day. So drop us a follow. All right, we touched on the winter weather that was hitting the Twin Cities yesterday. We do have some snow totals that really affected all of our friends here around the state of Minnesota. As Ian said, that clipper really kind of took the line of Interstate 94. So anybody north of 94 got hit with a lot more snow than anybody south of 94, with the Twin Cities metropolitan area more or less kind of serving as the belt of that clipper, if you will. So areas north of 94, cities like Brainerd, Detroit Lakes, and Rice Lake, all got between 5 and 8 inches of snow. Those south of 94, our friends in Hutchinson and Mankato and other cities that are south of that interstate line, only got about an inch. But here in the Twin Cities, again, sort of the belt of that clipper, if you will. I'm no meteorologist, but that's the way that it seemed to be described yesterday by Ian. And then looking at weather maps, we got between 3 and 5 inches here in the Twin Cities. Obviously, if you were commuting home yesterday around 5 o'clock, you saw it, I saw it. The conditions out there were horrible. We want to thank all day senior producer Amber Milner once again for providing those great shots of her drive home yesterday as she was leaving the Fox 9 office here in Eden Prairie and going to her home. Beautiful shots from those freeways of the slow traffic and really the slushy roads that were in effect. And now, in both of the Twin Cities, both Minneapolis and St. Paul, there is something called a snow emergency in effect and in place. School cancellations across the Twin Cities were in effect today. And again, at about 4:20 p.m. today. We're going to be talking to Ian Leonard all about what it means to have a snow emergency, what are sort of the different protocols behind this, and what we can expect in the days to come as those frigid temperatures really start to set in here in the Twin Cities and across this great state of Minnesota. All right. The afternoon shift is just getting started. We have so much good stuff coming up. And like I said, coming up after this commercial break, we're going to be talking to Adam Dunnick, the president and CEO of the Downtown Minneapolis Council, all about the push to get more public restrooms into the downtown area. That conversation and more is coming up right here on the afternoon shift. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. Welcome back to the afternoon shift. Minneapolis's number one problem might be number two. Downtown Minneapolis, they're in need of more public restrooms, according to the Downtown Council. Its 2035 plan calls for 20% more access by next year. Joining us now to tell us more is Adam Dunnick, the president and CEO of the Minneapolis Downtown Council. Adam, welcome to the afternoon shift. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Adam, can you just tell us more? What's the problem going on right now in downtown with the need for more public restrooms, and what's the Downtown Council doing to take action about it?
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about significantly for a number of years with our businesses, with our members, as we also operate the Downtown Improvement District and try to serve the public. We actually operate one of the public restrooms on Nicollet Mall in our community space in the Gavaday Plaza. And we have Ike kiosks, which are sort of wayfinding devices. They're electronic digital billboards that if you are out walking around, you can check for your nearest restaurant or public restrooms or where how to catch the bus or transit or where to park close. Those sorts of resources are just a touch click away at the Ike kiosk. But something we hear consistently is there aren't enough public bathrooms, and there's not a very good way to find the ones that do exist.
Yeah, and so where are some of the hot spots, if you will, that people that have to go and maybe don't have another place to go, where are they typically going?
I would say, especially along Nicollet Mall, it's places like the Hennepin County Library. They oftentimes go to a retailer or restaurant. So if Target is nearby at Ninth and Nicollet, they'll go in there, or just the nearest building. Our facilities at Sixth and Nicollet, but and there. I think there's this misconception that there should be there's misunderstanding rather that there should be bathrooms everywhere. We think that there ought to be, but the question is who provides them. And so there's a little bit of at times finger pointing between should the buildings open up all their space, should the city or maybe Metro Transit, the transit agency, provide some of those public restrooms, because it's a lot of work and resources into maintaining and covering them in terms of an operations standpoint.
Adam, do you see it for these private companies that you mentioned there, Target, different restaurants downtown? Do you see it as a civic responsibility of theirs to be able to provide restroom access to those that need it most? I know there would be a lot of people that would probably disagree with that too.
I just think that there's an important both humanity angle to it as well as a hospitality angle. I have helped countless people in my own time here the last 2 years doing this job. I've helped countless people go to the bathroom in my building, where I've walked them a couple buildings over, seen them on the street. I think I'm a little bit approachable because some people recognize my face, but other people just kind of know that I'm around downtown a lot. So people say like, hey, do you know where the nearest restroom is? And I pointed them to a public one if I'm closer to that. But if I'm just as close to my own building, I'll bring them and badge them into my restroom and let them go there. And these are oftentimes travelers too. It's people that have been driving in from greater Minnesota, or you're coming in from Iowa or Wisconsin, you're coming in to see a football game or taking a show at the theater. And if what they experience is coming down here and having a really hard time going to the restroom, that's not a good first impression of a city. Now, some people might say, well, if you're going to stay at a hotel or go patronize a restaurant or bar, just go to the bathroom there. That's sometimes easier said than done. There's a lot of public space around here. And again, there is some public restrooms that people aren't as aware of. There's City Hall and the Hennepin County Government Center. There's a fair amount of restrooms all over different parts of downtown, and a number of folks do make their restrooms available. St. Basilica comes to mind, and so do some of the other churches. Oftentimes, will allow people in to use the restroom. But I think that there could be a way for us to have more access. The other thing I'll say is we work with other cities and downtowns, and other downtowns have seen an increased use of some publicly available restrooms that are outside, that are self-cleaning, and there's a safety component to them that from an operational standpoint aren't as costly as they've been. And so hopefully some of this evolving technology will help groups like ours. We could even invest in our own. We have had a public restroom out on PV Plaza, which we're responsible for maintaining and operating. So we've had that. But we also have a team of ambassadors that have extra eyes and ears on it and know what's happening there. That's, I think, the harder part for a business to commit to. If you're running a coffee shop or a bar or restaurant, I have sympathy for them if they're already short-staffed and their folks need to do a lot of things. Guarding a public restroom or being responsible for a restroom is just an added expense.
Yeah, and you bring up places downtown that do offer that. You mentioned the Basilica. I know St. Olaf Church also prides itself on having a public restroom available for people to use, and I've seen that work in that ministry myself firsthand. I think there's a lot of people that, Adam, that would say, the building more of public restrooms downtown might lead to some people using them for nefarious reasons, maybe some drug usages or whatnot. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, and that's been our experience too. And I mentioned that when I spoke to the newspaper about the story. So that's not an unfounded fear. I think that's where either potentially technology or additional resources, by the way, of hospitality ambassadors or people that can check on the restrooms. Again, if we are in a position as an organization to help to raise the dollars to do that, right now we don't really have that in our budget, but longer term, as we think about ways to make downtown more inviting and accessible, that might be something we take on if the cost point comes down low enough with some of these newer publicly available restrooms. They kind of look like they're almost like they look portable. They are more, you can get them in a more of a permanent structure, but they are mobile. But nobody enjoys the experience of going to use a porta potty. We use those for events at times, either the events that we have historically put on, but also when we're hosting like Taste of Minnesota or other larger scale events in downtown Minneapolis, we have those. And that's not a great experience. And it is an opportunity for people to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And that's where the safety element comes in. And that's where we have to have resources to operate and maintain.
You bring about the phrase cost point here. So what would be the cost of this? Or what kind of dollars are we looking at to build these? And would the money be coming out of taxpayer dollars as well?
The proposal that the city council advanced, I believe, was around $700,000. And I think it depends on what it costs to either purchase these, I don't even know how to best describe them other than sort of portable, bathroom units. That's one thing to explore. The other thing to explore is to talk with the units of government, the city, the county. Metro Transit is another example, because another thing that is not always discussed about this impacts not only people that are visiting here or people that just come downtown. It also impacts people who are working. So if you're driving a cab or an Uber or Lyft, if you're a Metro Transit bus or train operator, they have bathroom breaks that they have to try to figure out logistically. And so if you're doing a job like that and you're working consistently, having that accessibility in a place that's close to a light rail platform or where a lot of bus shelters are could make some sense for people that are working too. And so I think thinking through how to approach public agencies is one part of it, and then thinking about potentially our role longer term. The business community already does a fair amount the way that the DID is structured to provide additional clean, safe services from the ambassadors all the way up to some other safety programs that we run. We're willing to potentially put some resources into it and think about that as something that we support. But it's also important to us that it's something that Hennepin County, the other partners, are supporting as well.
And yeah, Adam, you mentioned that cost figure of $700,000. I think there's a lot of people that say, "Wow, that's a lot of money for some public bathrooms." But do you think potentially that investment in public bathrooms could create perhaps a more welcoming experience for those visitors that you said that are coming downtown and may actually lead to more revenue coming downtown?
Absolutely. And you think about where downtowns are right now and our history. People have had to come to downtown for a long time because you had to. That was where jobs were. That was where retail was. And now place means a lot less today to a lot of people. You can go shopping at a mall in a suburban community. You can go to jobs all over the place in terms of kind of where access to those sorts of things are. So we as a city have to compete with the changes in people's behavior. It's easy to think about going to the Mall of America or one of the Southdale or Ridgedale malls, and you never have to worry about if there's a place to sit or a bathroom or any of these other amenities. But if you come downtown, you have to wonder about that. Parking might be harder. So when I think about it, I think of it as we're putting up another hurdle where it makes it harder for people to think about coming downtown and spending the day here. So for example, if we have the Dayton's Market, the Holiday Market, or our other holiday markets at IDS and the Chris Kindle Market, those are great amenities for people to come. But if you only want to be here for an hour or two because you're worried you might have to use the restroom, or you're worried that there isn't a good place to sit, a comfortable place to sit. I was shopping with my parents last year. My dad finally was like, "Where are all the benches? Where's the place to sit?" And that's also an issue we've tried to be proactive on. But striking that balance between being hospitable, warm, and welcoming, and also making sure that we are not providing an environment where a bunch of bad things can happen. It creates a public safety concern is something that's always on our mind. I think some of that is around design too, and what people do and how businesses interact. We want to have open spaces with that are warm, welcoming, inviting, and then we also need to send the message as a city that we're not going to be permissive of bad behavior either. That's an important thing that we need to hear from our policymakers, from our leaders, and something that even as a business leader myself, I try to talk about with groups all the time.
Adam, you mentioned that $700,000 cost point. That would be an amendment to Mayor Jacob Fry's proposed budget for 2026. Do you think that proposal is going to likely follow through? I mean, what's the likelihood that the mayor will agree to that?
It looks likely at this point. It was adopted as a part of the budget. I think the mayor is, I'm not sure where they're at in terms of the negotiations, if he's at a point where he has to sign or veto the budget. I do know that his goal was always to get to a point where he agreed to some of the changes the council proposed. And so assuming that that goes into effect, then we'll work with the Public Works Department. I do think it opens up the question of where the bathrooms go, which is in itself a really big challenge, because I think if there's consensus that we need more bathrooms, there's probably a lot more disagreement about where they're going to go, where they would be located. And I think what we would prioritize is a place that already has a lot of built-in foot traffic and oversight and people kind of monitoring them, so that it's not a place where it's off in a quiet alley or in a surface parking lot, and it could become a safety hazard and an issue where bad things happen. And so getting into the next phase of where they go and how it works. The thing that I'd say that I appreciate is that if our approach to it is take it on as a pilot, if this works, maybe we can scale it up. Maybe we can, if it works someplace, maybe we can think about having it in other parts of the city too, and having them plan for around events and that sort of approach.
Absolutely. Adam, let's end with this. The Red Hot Chili Peppers band member Flea, I know he had a very infamous experience trying to find a bathroom downtown, which really kind of led as sort of a spur of this conversation back in 2023. Can you just share that story with the people that may be unaware of that?
Yeah, he came down looking for a public restroom and asked the restaurateur about using the restroom, and essentially kind of talks about getting harassed and told to leave, and has the law enforcement called on him. It's you never know who it is that is in need of a restroom, and that's, I think, case in point. It could be the star actor in one of the Broadway shows at the Orpheum or the State Theater. It could be a world-renowned musician that's playing at Orchestra Hall, but you don't know who they are as they're walking through our city, and they don't know the city well. And especially if you're from a different part of the country or the world, where access to bathrooms is kind of just a normal thing. And so it's something that I think we can and we ought to make some progress in.
Well said, Adam. Adam Dunnick, the president and CEO of the Minneapolis Downtown Council. Really appreciate your time today. We're looking forward to keeping up with this story, and maybe we could have you back on if there's any sort of updates to this. We'd love to hear from you again.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Very interesting conversation there. And if you're in and around downtown Minneapolis, you know that this is an issue. And Adam Dunnick and the rest of the Downtown Council is looking to find some common ground with the mayor to figure this issue out and create some solutions for the downtown community.
Yeah, I think it is. Adam made that point. He's like, in other parts of the world, it's not such an issue. And it's a funny one because in Australia, like, access to public restrooms, I feel like in communal spaces like parks and downtowns, they are much more readily available. There's no question, they're much more readily available. But interestingly, on the flip side, American restrooms at gas stations are just so superior. I don't think that there are better restrooms at gas stations anywhere else in the world than in America. It's like, it was the number one most impressive thing about America when I came the first time. Is like, they're just so good. But that's why I was so interested to hear what Adam had to say about whether, if these private companies, is there a benefit from supplying these restrooms? Because I imagine that Holiday, Quick Trip, they get a lot more business because they're getting that foot traffic,
right.
people stopping to use the bathroom. So it's
the
civic duty, but then also, is there a financial kickback? I wonder if it's the same thing as, say, Target, who have to, have restrooms for their customers downtown, but are people going into Target and buying things? I don't know.
It's a really good point, especially about the gas stations there. And you're right, Paul. You're probably more likely to get a bag of chips or get a drink if you pop into the gas station and use the restroom, and you're walking past all of it anyways.
You also feel like you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Bathrooms in gas stations or servos, as we call them in Australia, they are horrific.
Yeah.
They are the most, I think probably the worst bathrooms I've ever used anywhere in the world were Australian petrol station bathrooms.
Wow. I didn't realize American gas stations have elite bathrooms.
Their second best idea.
The second best idea, right behind our public parks. Yes, yes. The more you learn, all here on the afternoon shift. I appreciate that note, Paul, and a great conversation with Adam Dunnick, the president and CEO of the Downtown Council, as well. All right, much more to come in today's episode of the afternoon shift. Don't go anywhere. We're going to keep on rolling right after this commercial break. Welcome back to the afternoon shift. We are going to be talking all about Ozempic, a real profile on the medication. It's something that you all at home probably know a lot about. We're going to learn more about it together. And one person I'm going to learn more about it with is Fox 9 senior executive producer Lori Fisher, who's got a real passion for health and exercise and fitness and a real passion for the subject matter. Welcome to the afternoon shift.
Well, thank
Lori.
you. This is
Thanks
I know. I feel like we need to shake or hug hands, something like that. Thank you for having me. I do have a big passion for health. And while I'm not on Ozempic or GLP-1, what you want to call it, I've tried to learn a lot about it. I have a lot of friends who are on it. I know a lot of people. Yeah. I'm sure more people that we don't know are on it. And you said, hey, you might know a lot, but you also might not know really anything about it, right?
No doubt. And that's really kind of the mission of the afternoon shift, is kind of learn together about a subject matter that is out there that people may know about, and just trying to learn more about it together.
Yeah, and it might affect your family, your friends, your coworkers. You never know, who might be on it and what they might be going through and how you can help them or just know more about it.
No doubt. I know that Ozempic, a big part of it is anti-obesity, to fight to get weight loss. But I know another part of the drug, it deals with diabetes, and for all the diabetics out there, they're very familiar with Ozempic. I know one of our producers here on the afternoon shift, there you are, Grace. Grace, can you give people your background and knowledge about Ozempic there?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I will say I have heard Ozempic was made for type 2 diabetes. So there's a very big distinction between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Some people even think that they should be named separately because they are such different conditions. For me as a type 1 diabetic, that means I'm insulin dependent. My body does not produce insulin at all. My pancreas doesn't really work. I have an insulin pump. That's how I receive insulin and stay healthy. Type 2 diabetics, for the most part, are able to produce insulin. It's usually developed later in life. I was diagnosed when I was 17. A lot of people with type 2 are diagnosed later in life. And Ozempic was made specifically for type 2 diabetics to help increase the amount of insulin that they have in their system, and also to just to overall increase their blood sugar numbers. And that's my overall understanding of it. We're going to get an expertise on it, but yeah, I have heard that for type 1 diabetics it might be helpful. I'm not exactly sure, so I'm gonna ask our doctor about what he thinks about that, and to gain some more perspective on all of it. But yeah, I mean, originally I do know it was made for diabetes.
Yeah, and obviously we're not health experts. That's why we're going to have the health expert on in a moment.
Yeah.
But what I have read and heard on several doctor podcasts is that it was a lot of times there's drugs that are made for something, right? Mm-hmm. And it's made to help diabetics, and then all of a sudden they find other things are happening with said drug to the patients who are taking it. Oh, they're losing weight now, or this is happening, or their skin's clearing up, or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a minute, could we use this drug for something else?
That's right.
And then that's where we find for weight loss.
Yes, and Ozempic, and it's taken over. It's in commercials and social media and whatnot. We are going to bring in now University of Minnesota Medical School Assistant Professor Dr. Amar Ahmed into the show. Dr. Ahmed, welcome to the afternoon shift. How are you?
Good. How are you, Adam? Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. Dr. Ahmed, can you just tell us, in your perspective, what is Ozempic?
So Ozempic is one of medications in one group. The group is called GLP-1 receptor agonists, and it stands for glucagon-like receptor agonist. And those groups of medication, they work by stimulating or mimicking the effect of natural hormone we produce in our body. We produce it from our gut, basically, and that hormone is. The function of that hormone is to increase the secretion of the insulin in response to the glucose. So when we eat, it stimulates the secretion of the insulin in response to the elevation in the glucose. So it brings the glucose down to normal range if we don't have diabetes, of course. And on the same time, the stimulation of this receptor causes suppression of the glucagon. And glucagon is one of the hormones which works in the opposite direction to the insulin. So insulin function is to bring our glucose down. Glucagon function is to bring our glucose up. And by doing so, that helps also in reducing the increase in the sugar in our blood. And as the discussion started, those medication initially, when they came to the market about 20 years ago, it was mainly for type 2 diabetes. And then after that, they found with the studies that those medication, they can work on other conditions, including obesity. And at that time, about 10 years later, they got the first medication of this group approved for weight loss in 2014. And since that time, like every few years, we get a new medication in this group with more efficacy, with a stronger effect in both the diabetes and the weight loss, and on the same time with more convenience. Like when it started, most of those medications were like daily injection, and with the time it shifted to be a weekly injection, which makes it more convenient for the patients. As Grace was talking about type 1 and type 2, type 1 and type 2, they are different identity. And the cause of type 1 is loss of the production of the insulin. So basically, patients with type 1, they lose the ability of producing insulin from their pancreas. However, type 2 is a different story completely. Type 2 patients, they still produce insulin. However, they have high resistance to that insulin, which makes the action of the insulin less on them. And despite the large amount they produce, it doesn't work. And their blood sugar starts to go up.
Doctor,
over the top.
Yeah. So can you talk to me So we know that it affects like how hungry you are, right? So that's what it's doing. So the people I do know who are on it aren't hungry. So then therefore they're not eating as much food. But I also know there are a lot of side effects. You can get really sick off of it. You take an injection. From what I've heard, you take an injection and maybe you're sick for a few days and then you're good for a few days. And then you have to take your another injection and you're kind of go through the cycle. Can you talk about what kind of side effects people have when it comes to using these drugs and that they should be aware of when they are on them?
Yes, of course. So no medication comes without any side effects, including the over-counter painkillers we use on daily basis almost. So every medication has side effects, and the major side effects of this group of the medication is the gastrointestinal side effects. 1 in every 5 patients using this medication, especially at the beginning of the use with the first dose and with up titration of the doses, they develop nausea. About 1 in 10, they develop vomiting, they develop constipation, they develop diarrhea, and so on. And with the time, the good news about this medication, with the time, most of the patients, they build up tolerance to this medication, and the side effect starts to disappear. Okay. The second concern about this medication is about the cause or the causality between this medication and developing pancreatitis, which is inflammation of the pancreas, which is until now, it's not very clear. However, it's still a concern. And if the patients on this medication develop pancreatitis, we advise to stop the medication immediately, and we do not use it in the future if there is no other cause of the pancreatitis was identified at that time. On top of that, most of the patients, they don't like the feeling of feeling full easily with eating smaller portions. And some of the patients, they consider that side effects. And this is one of the mechanisms how those medication reduces the weight, because they reduce the gastric emptying. And by reducing that, we feel full easily by eating smaller portions. And on the same time, they work on our brain in the center of the satiety, and they stimulate that so we feel full, like we don't have appetite for eating. So by doing that, like the patient, they lose weight. Other side effects about this medication is the gallbladder diseases, the gallbladder stones, and the inflammation of the gallbladder or the cholecystitis. There is a association with that, with the use of this medication. In general, rapid weight loss put patients at higher risk of developing this complication, despite they are using this medication or not using this medication. And in addition to that, like there is recently concern started about the loss of the muscle mass.
That's what I wanted to get to. So
yes.
Jumping right in, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you hear a lot about Ozempic face, Ozempic butt. All those terms. And I mean, really, it's a thing. And you can tell, sometimes you can tell who is on it because, like you said, it starts to go after your muscle and you're just not as hungry. And I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you really have to bulk up on protein. Like, it's so important. But if you're not hungry, you're not getting those calories in and you're not getting that protein in. So how it's this fight against, like, I still need to get this protein because I don't want to lose my muscle, but I'm still trying to lose weight.
Excellent point. So with the weight loss, we lose, as we said, we lose the lean mass. The way to avoid that by increasing the protein intake. So we eat a smaller portion. Yes, we don't have the ability to eat larger amount of food, but what we eat should be mostly protein. That's the first point. The second point, we advise all the patients, we put them on this medication to start resistance exercises, so they don't lose their muscle, because with the exercises, we can maintain our muscle mass and we can nourish these muscles by the protein we are getting from our diet. So this is very important when we use these medications.
And can you follow up on that? I know that, a lot of people are using these medications to jumpstart a diet, right? Jumpstart their weight loss journey. But a lot of times I know how hard it is to exercise, to get my butt out of bed, and you're tired, and you have other things to do, and exercise a lot of times comes last. You might have kids, all that kind of stuff. You're working, you might have 1 or 2 jobs. But can you talk about how important it is to change not just your diet, but the other things that you were doing when you're on a GLP-1?
Excellent. Yes. So yeah, there is another also important point related to that, some of the patients, they don't lose weight in this medication, even the strongest medication in this class. And why that happened? Because this medication works by reducing the appetite, reducing the gastric emptying, making them eat less. But they shift their diet. They start to eat the things they like, which are high in carbohydrates, instead of what they used to eat before starting this medication, relying completely on the medication to cause weight loss for them. So they don't achieve the good results, and they get frustrated from the using of the medications. Using of these medications over a long period of time causes, with the dietary change as well, causes change in the lifestyle. And we get used to a new lifestyle. What we eat smaller portion. We continue to eat a smaller portion. We eat high protein. We continue to eat high protein. This is important. The exercises, resistance exercises are important for the muscle, but in general, aerobic exercises to lose weight, it's very difficult. The exercises mainly causes maintenance of the weight. However, to cause calorie deficit that causes weight loss only with exercise without diet change, that's like very, very difficult. It needs very strict schedule for the exercise, frequent exercises, and also like a lot of effort to cause this calorie deficits.
I have a question, and like I was saying before, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I've talked to my doctor about Ozempic and the uses for it. I don't hear often of many type 1 diabetics being on it, but as we were saying, Ozempic was created, GLP-1s were founded to help out type 2 diabetics. Has there been any research done in how it could benefit type 1 diabetics or other people who maybe have similar conditions?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So there are studies, small studies done in the use of the GLP-1 in type 1 diabetes. And the main purpose of these studies, or why those studies were done, because in the past, the phenotype of type 1 diabetes was low BMI. Like people with type 1 diabetes, they are not obese, but the obesity became epidemic. Like in the last CDC report, like a couple of years ago, 40% of adults in US, they have obesity, okay, including type 1 patients. And with that, they will develop the resistance to the insulin from the obesity. So definitely using GLP-1 agonist on those patients, it's helpful in reducing the insulin resistance, making them lose weight, require less amount of insulin.
Yeah, Dr. Ahmed, you just mentioned there that 40% of adults in the United States are obese. This is an epidemic in the United States. I guess to kind of close out this conversation, do you think that Ozempic is a real long-term solution to this obesity epidemic that we are seeing in this country?
That's an excellent question. I believe like if it become available more, because this medication is expensive. It costs about $1,000 per month for 1 month supply. So if it becomes available for people with overweight and obesity with less restriction, I think that will be a solution for that. And also it has multiple benefits, as we mentioned before, cardiovascular benefits, protection from stroke, protection from kidney disease, protection from developing fatty liver, which is like accumulation of the bad fat in the liver, a lot of things. So overall, it will improve the health of the people in the future.
Awesome. Dr. Amar Ahmed, an assistant professor from the University of Minnesota's Medical School. We appreciate your time, doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. $1,000 a month for Ozempic.
Well, I think we need a part 2 because I have a lot more questions. I wanted to know about the cost. Yeah. I also wanted to ask him about the social media. Even this morning, I saw a woman who was very thin on social media who said, hey, I have a BMI of 18, which is low. That's very low. And if I don't qualify by my regular doctor, I'm going to go on social media and find one of these companies that will qualify me and pay out of pocket. So, like, what does he think about that? Yeah. And just kind of the long-term effects, like what is going to happen if you are taking it for maybe what it wasn't originally made for? Are we going to see any long-term effects? Yeah. And I guess that's just things we don't know. I mean, he said it's been around for 20 years, so that's encouraging.
Yeah.
But I just, you worry about your friends and family and everything, how we started here.
Totally. And when you put on, kind of commercial jingles like the, Ozempic, when you get that, it kind of like makes it seem like, oh, this is fine. Everybody can do this. As Dr. Ahmed said there are some serious side effects to this, and there are some serious costs to this as well. I agree with you, Lori. Lots more to discuss about the Ozempic conversation.
It's also a game changer for a lot of people.
No doubt.
And it helps not only, we were talking about the diabetes community, but people who have been struggling with weight and just don't need something to like kickstart, and just think about how you would feel as you start seeing results, right?
That's right.
And then maybe you will make a lot other changes in your life, and then it goes to mental health, and then it just kind of hopefully the dominoes will all fall in the right direction.
That's right. Lori, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Fox 9 senior executive producer, also the host of Enough Said on
Moderator, trying to keep the guys in line.
Yeah.
Dan and Justin from KFAN.
Yeah. When can people see that show, by the way?
Well, it depends on if we have live sports. We have so much live sports now. We have college football on Friday nights and hockey and everything like that. But usually, if it's on regular times, would be 7:30 on Fox 9 Plus, 9:30 on Fox 9, and it is always on the Fox Local app.
On Fridays.
Yes, we post it on Fridays. Friday nights.
Yes.
It's kind of, I call it weekend filler. You might see it, like you might be at a restaurant at a bar on a Saturday night, and go, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
Maybe a game's ended early, and so we throw on Enough Said to kind of bridge the gap to like the next program. So we're kind of all over the place on the weekend.
I love it. I love it. And your first visit here to the Afternoon Shift studio, we got to make this a more regular thing.
Hey, like I said, I have a lot more questions, so we'll do a part 2 and then invite me anytime. I'd love it.
Wow.
I'm always here.
Paul Milgate, let's make this part 2 Ozempic conversation happen. Lori Fisher, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Coming up after this commercial break, 60 years of a Charlie Brown Christmas. We're going to be talking to the curator of the Charles Schulz Museum in beautiful Santa Rosa, California, all about the holiday classic. Coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the afternoon shift. Yesterday, December 9th, was the 60th year anniversary of the holiday classic, A Charlie Brown Christmas's premiere on network television. The creator of the Peanuts, Charles Schulz, is a Twin Cities native himself. Joining us now is the curator of the Charles Schulz Museum and Research Center in beautiful Santa Rosa, California, in the Bay Area, Benjamin Clark. Benjamin, welcome to the afternoon shift. How are you, sir?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm so excited about this interview. I absolutely love this film. Benjamin, why does A Charlie Brown Christmas continue to resonate with audiences 60 years later, 1965, and people are still obsessed with it just the same today?
Right. Well, it's, it touches on such human things. It goes deeper than a lot of cartoons and things, made for, especially things made for kids. It's usually simple and loud and boisterous, and this is anything but.
No doubt. I think one thing about the film that everybody really loves is the soundtrack provided by the Vince Guaraldi Trio. Can you talk about the music's longevity? I know Mr. Schulz worked very closely with Vince and his accompaniment of jazz artists on the track there. Can you talk about that specifically?
Well, Mr. Schulz was not like a huge fan of jazz. It was actually Lee Mendelson, the producer on that, who thought of Vince and brought him on board for that project. And you're right. No, they wanted to do something with traditional music, traditional Christmas music, and but give it, kind of a new sound. And that's something that Vince Guaraldi was so good at. He could take these phrases and traditional songs, these very old songs, and make them sound like something new, with that kind of bossa nova jazz sound that he was working with at that time.
No doubt. Do you think, Benjamin, it's fair to say that A Charlie Brown Christmas really put the Peanuts, it really kind of elevated their national profile? Obviously, the Peanuts had debuted before the film ever came out. Do you think the film really kind of upped the game of the cartoon strip?
Oh, absolutely. This is the first time outside of a few commercials that people were really seeing these characters, and they, a whole generation of kids had already grown up with them. The strip debuted in 1950, so we're 15 years into Peanuts at this point, and people were so excited to actually hear the voices and see if it kind of matched what was in their minds, because these characters were really well known and beloved to the people who already knew them.
No doubt. And I know that these characters are well known and beloved, especially here in the Twin Cities. Mr. Schulz was born in Minneapolis, a Twin Cities native himself. Can you talk about his Twin Cities roots? What made this area of the country so special to him?
Yeah, I mean, what a place to grow up at a time too. He was born in 1922, so this is, he grew up kind of right in the middle of the Great Depression, and it's a tough time everywhere, and especially there in the Twin Cities. And growing up mostly in St. Paul, he cherished that time, though. He really didn't, he didn't really know how hard times were, because his parents were really, good to him and doted on him and encouraged him at every step of the way. So it was a really special time and something he cherished, and we can see that in his strip. It's still, even though he lived in California, here in Sonoma County since 1958, it still snowed every year in Peanuts. So even though it doesn't here.
That's amazing. And, I think it's a fair question to ask. Is A Charlie Brown Christmas, is it supposed to be set in St. Paul, Minnesota specifically, or does anybody really know where the setting is?
It's set in the heart and mind of Charles Schulz. It's hard to give it a real specific geographical location because, like I said, it snows all the time, snows every winter, but we still get a lot of place names and references to things here in Sonoma County, California. So it's it's a mashup. It's, like I said, it's in the heart and mind of Charles Schulz.
I love that. What's your favorite part of the film, personally, Benjamin?
Oh my goodness. I love it. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Nebraska. So, for me, it heard that those first notes from that album. So it really is special.
Yeah, I absolutely love the music too, and I think the Christmas tree picking out scene where he ends up getting kind of the Linus tree, it doesn't look as beautiful as the others, and he kind of gets chastised by everybody else, but then they dress it up, and I'm probably giving away the whole plot line of the movie here, but that, and obviously to the psychiatrist scene with Lucy, that's kind of become iconic, I think, in just sort of American pop culture, and you see that sort of like booth of Ask Me Anything. You see that now in other cultures, and I think a lot of people don't realize that sort of concept of setting up a booth in public and being like, ask me anything, really that concept, you could draw it back to a Charlie Brown Christmas, and that's kind of where it was born, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Schultz said it was kind of a riff on a lemonade stand. That was kind of his idea. Said, in this modern day and age, we could probably all use more psychological help for a nickel than a glass of lemonade. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So many beautiful pieces of art that are behind you there at the Charles Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa. Can you talk about more about the museum? What visitors can expect when they go there?
Yes, when you come visit us in our galleries, this is just my office. There's no original, Peanuts art in here. But, in our galleries, you will always see the incredible original drawings that made Peanuts by Charles Schulz. You'll find, his personal artifacts and objects as well. So we can really get, a feel for the guy and be able to see these objects that were witnesses to his life. So you can see his pens and his drawing table, and you can see how it's really worn in the middle because of the work he put into all of that. So it's a special place, and there's always something amazing to see. We have 6 rotating exhibitions every year, so there's plenty to see. There's something new to see too if you haven't been here in a little bit.
And Benjamin, are there any sort of initiatives or any sort of special programming around the 60th anniversary of A Charlie Brown Christmas happening at the museum this week?
There are some really wonderful events coming up. I think on December 20th, we have a special event here with some of the children of Lee Mendelson, who still work for Mendelson Productions, who is the producer on that, and even some of the children's choir members who recorded that are going to be here as well. So really special time to come check that out and meet some really special people.
And when you say the children's choir, of course, if you've seen the film, you would think of the ice skating scene right at the beginning where they're all singing "Christmas Time is Here." This is the children's choir you're talking about?
Yes, that's them.
So actual members of people that sang that song for the film. Of course, they've got to be 70 plus age old now, right? They're going to be at the museum this week.
Yes, on the 20th, I believe. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So
that's awesome. So much great stuff happening at the Charles Schulz Museum. Sadly, not here in the Twin Cities. You got to go to the beautiful Bay Area, like Benjamin said, to Sonoma County, Santa Rosa, California, specifically, to go to the Charles Schulz Museum and pay Benjamin a visit there and see all the great programming and stuff they have around this Twin Cities icon and curator of the Peanuts and the inventor of one of the most iconic Christmas movies of all time, A Charlie Brown Christmas. Benjamin, thank you so much for your time today and for all this great information about this timeless piece of work that, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to speak for yourself, but I feel confident that 60 years down the line, so that would be 2085, people I feel like are still going to be watching A Charlie Brown Christmas. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind.
Absolutely. Awesome, Benjamin. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great movie and what a great museum they have going on there up in beautiful Northern California. I love A Charlie Brown Christmas. We always talk about what our favorite Christmas movies are, and people want to debate about Die Hard and Home Alone and all this stuff. I feel like A Charlie Brown Christmas doesn't really get the respect that it deserves. It really is a timeless Christmas film, and I'll say it, probably my favorite Christmas film of all time. A Charlie Brown Christmas. Happy 60th birthday. Celebrated yesterday. I'll be sure to watch it this weekend. All right, stay with us here on the afternoon shift. We just hit 4:02. We have a great 4 o'clock hour lined up for you all. We're going to be talking about this Australia social media ban. Also going to be talking to Ian Leonard live in studio around 4:20. Don't go anywhere. The afternoon shift continues right after this. afternoon shift. You may have seen this story. It's making some national headway here. The nation of Australia, the beautiful nation of Australia, the home nation of our executive producer, Paul Milgate, it just put into place a law that bans anybody under the age of 16 from having accounts on any major social media platforms. We're talking TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. So we're going to try to get to the bottom of this story with a face that you all may know. She's the founder and CEO of Media Minefield and a Twin Cities TV legend. Was at KTSP for several years and also an intern in this very building way back in the day. Christy Peel. Christy, welcome back to Fox 9. How are you?
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's lovely to be back in the building. It looked a lot different in the 90s when I was interning here.
Yeah. Can you talk about your time sort of in the Twin Cities media market? When were you sort of on television here? What year range was that?
Sure. I was intern here in the 90s, and then I worked at KEYC in Mankato. I went to Sioux Falls. I went to Dayton, Ohio. I was at KSTP as an investigative reporter 2007, 8, 9. Yeah. All
of this really kind of before social media really kind of took huge headway here in the United States. In a lot of ways, it could be used for good. The nation of Australia is seeing it as, for people, not of a certain age, as kind of a negative thing. Can you talk specifically about this new law that they just implemented a few days ago in Australia?
It's getting global attention, as it should, and I suspect other nations, states will follow. It raises the level of the conversation. What do we do with kids and having just open borders to strangers, people who may or may not be even real people, and how do we protect them? So it's interesting that a government is coming in and saying, okay, if the parents aren't going to do it and the companies aren't going to do it, we're going to do it. Yeah. Now, listen, kids always have a way of getting around things. What's going to happen if a kid finds a way around it? Because it's gonna happen. I mean, we even see this with TikTok in other places. Like they have ways to get around these laws, right? Kids are way more savvy than their parents give them credit for. And I think this is probably the last generation where the kids will know more about social media than the parents. 20 years in the future, I think it will shift, and who knows what landscape will be then. Sure. But kids are going to find a way around it. But that doesn't change the responsibility that parents have to understand where their kids are, what they're talking about. And Jonathan Haidt has written a wonderful book called The Anxious Generation about social media and the impact on children's brains. So I agree with what he says about it, and it's also important that we empower teenagers and people who are going to enter careers to know how to use social media for good, because it's such an important platform. And the work that we do at Media Minefield with executives and the book that I wrote and the speaking around the country that I do is all about empowering and teaching people how to use social media for good, because it can make difference in families and communities and businesses. So I don't want the message to be social media is awful, you should never be on it. The message should be, with the right education and empowerment, social media is it's a powerful tool. Yeah, and we're going to get into the book, Flip the Script here, Flip Your Script, I should say, here in a second. I know in addition to being the founder and CEO of Media Minefield, you're also a mother yourself. How do you see this, just from a personal standpoint of what they're doing in Australia? Do you think, as a mom, and are your children below the age of 16 right now? Not anymore. Christy, not anymore. But at one point they were. And do you think that this would have been a good thing to have before they reached the age of 16 here in the United States? I love the idea of having more people talking about social media and parents understanding the danger and the risk, because it's in America, oftentimes with parents, it's binary. They can be on it, let them go, or absolutely not, never. And I think it's more about use it responsibly. And my kids now are 23. It's my oldest son's birthday today. Happy birthday, Eli. Yes. They're 23 and 18, and so they are on social media, but my husband and I always had their passwords. We checked in. Now, I found out as they've aged, they've done some things that I didn't know they were doing, and this is my business. So kids are savvy and they're really smart, but I think it's important that parents understand where the kids are and what platforms there are, and pay attention to who they're talking to and vet them, because there's a lot of people who don't say what their names are and their ages and their genders aren't really who they say they are on social media. So you would never just open the doors you wouldn't take your kid to the Mall of America and say, talk to anyone you want. Sure. I'll pick you up at 6. And that's kind of what people are doing in social media, only it's on a global scale.
Sure, absolutely. Back to Australia, there is a $50 million fine, Australian dollar fine, if somebody does get caught breaking the law here. How strictly you think they're going to be able to enforce? I mean, that's obviously that's a huge penalty, 50 million Australian dollars, if you try to get the workaround to get on this.
I'm not a politician. I have no idea how they're going to enforce this. I don't know how they're going to make it work. Is it the parents' responsibility? Is it the kids' responsibility? Is it the teacher's responsibility? They've opened up a can of worms, and I'm glad that it's not my can of worms. We'll let them figure it out.
Yeah.
But it does raise the conversation to a level that I think it deserves to be at, which is social media is powerful, and it can be used dangerously, and it can be used for good.
Do you think that this will end up working in Australia? Do you think that kids maybe, because I know that this social media leads to increased rates of depression, and sadly for some children, they end up taking their own life because of social media. I mean, do you think that this ban will end up maybe reducing some of those rates among young people in Australia?
Gosh, I hope so.
Yeah.
And if it does, we're going to see more countries taking action.
Yeah.
And like all things that are brand new, odds are they got a few things a little bit off that they're going to tweak, and maybe we all can learn from them because it is an important conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that the United States could end up, being one of those countries that takes it into effect as well if it does work in Australia?
I suspect you'll hear from parents and educators probably asking for something to take place if it can be proven to be effective in Australia, because all of us want our kids to be safe. That's a global parental educator concern. We want our kids to be safe. And if we can figure out a way to make social media safe and realize that it's not going away, and kids can get around things, how can we balance those? Gosh, I think we're going to see more of it.
Yeah. Do you think that these social media brands, these big companies, Instagram, Facebook, which of course are merged together with Meta, X, TikTok, do you think that they're going to try to get ahead of this law, maybe start implementing some policies so they can, kind of stay ahead of the curve and kind of stay one step ahead of the government, if you will?
I suspect from a business perspective, it would be in their best interest to find a way to continue to make money and keep kids safe, because that's a bigger audience for them. So I suspect they're working on it. I've read some things about they're leveraging Face ID to see if they can understand a kid's age. It's a hard thing to do, but can AI be used to protect the kids? That would be ideal. However, if I'm a 10-year-old and you're my 18-year-old brother, I'm probably like, here, log in for me, and now I can use it. So again, I think it's tricky for the companies, but it would be good business sense to figure out a way to do both that, make money and keep kids safe.
As you know from the social media world, there are accounts that are really tailored towards appealing to children, young adults, particularly those under the age of 16. If this does work in Australia, for example, and the United States considers this, what happens to those accounts? What happens to those companies that are really trying to market and appeal to younger people who are on social media? They're going to have to find other ways?
Maybe. I suspect they're figuring out a way to prove that they can do it better than the big companies, because that would be in their best interest. They would have, gosh, we've already figured this out. Just bring your kids over to our platforms.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that anyone right now can say that they've figured it out, or we wouldn't have the kind of statistics that you've talked about where we do see decline in mental health with kids.
Yeah, yeah. You brought up that facial recognition a couple minutes ago there. That's a real thing? The companies are using Face ID to see your age? Is that real? Because I just thought that Face ID was just to kind of use as a password essential of knowing your face and being able to get in your phone. The government, or not the government, but a phone might be able to tell your age just by looking at your face. Is that?
I've read about it in Australia that they're, how do you verify someone's age? Because a 10-year-old doesn't have ID. So how do you make sure that that person is 10 and not 17 or a young-looking 17? Right. So how are they going to do IDs? And not everyone gets their driver's license. So are we asking Social Security numbers, passports? How are we going to verify? And so I've read that facial ID is part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. This book that you just wrote here, Flip Your Script, Own Your Story, and Unlock the Positive Power of Social Media. What's in the book, and how can social media be used for good? We always hear about the negative stuff associated with social media. What are you finding about it that in ways that could be really used as a force for good in the world?
When we think about adults using social media, so let's make the distinction.
Yeah.
It's so much about what you decide to take in. If a user tells me, gosh, social media is terrible and it's toxic and people are yelling at each other, I look at them and say, well, who are you following? Yeah. What are you paying attention to? What chat rooms are you in? Because you ask other people, is social media a place for good? And they would say, absolutely. Yeah. We just saw, it made national news, the gentleman in Michigan who was working at a store and a YouTuber saw him and said, why are you still working? And he launched a social media campaign, raised more than $1 million, and that gentleman is able to retire. So the stories of social media being used for good are all over the place. So as users, if you're following accounts that are making your blood pressure raise,
that's on you.
That's on you. Yeah. And LinkedIn is such a fast-growing platform. It's being taught in high schools and colleges and training schools where students are able to get jobs and internships and make connections. And it's important to understand the power. And so the book is really a framework. How do you create an online presence that benefits yourself, benefits your community? And if you show up to online platforms and say, I'm here to help and I'm here to learn, the whole conversation changes. If you show up, I'm here to judge and I'm here to tell someone they're wrong, well, that's a different kind of conversation as well. So it's on us to make it a place of good and positivity and to build connections and to build trust. And we see it happening all over the country with the executives we work with. And I'm really passionate about it. I wrote the book. It was going to come out last winter. My teenage son was diagnosed with cancer, and I used social media to share awareness. And he's now cancer-free.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Yeah, and all of the profits are being donated to Children's Minnesota. And his story is at the end. It's my social media posts and how it got more people to donate money to help kids and to donate blood to help kids with cancer. So I really apply all of the lessons in the book to my own life and my own story, because it isn't just the, look at what a great vacation I'm on kind of stuff that should be on social. We also should be able to share things that we're struggling with to help other people. And that's how we can make social media a place for good.
Thank you so much for sharing that story there, Christy. And obviously you can find that, like you just said, in the book here as well. I know for me personally, social media has helped me, kind of refine my skills, and I've been able to meet people that I would not have been able to meet without it. And so I think, again, if you're using it as a good tool and as a positive tool, there are so many benefits to it. And like you said, if you're following accounts that make your blood boil, whatever, that you don't have to follow those things. That's on you. So all of this is so interesting about what they're doing in Australia, particularly how they chose the age of 16 and under, and seeing how this goes. And like you said, this really could be a framework of other countries to follow in line, potentially the United States. We'll see what ends up happening, but this is a very interesting story making national headway, and we'll see what ends up happening down under, and if it ends up coming stateside as well.
And maybe the executive producer should take us there, and we could do a little, field test and see if it's working. Talk to some kids.
I know that Christy can't hear me,
yes.
but I'm back to Australia as of Saturday, so
yep.
I'll let you know how it's all going down, Christy. I'll send a message via Adam.
Paul says he's going down to Australia on Saturday, and he'll let you know how it's going down under, and he'll send a message via me back to you to let you know how everything goes. So,
I'm super interested. What do the parents think? What do the kids think?
Yeah.
So.
For real. We'll have to get Paul to report back on that. Christy Peel, one more time, where can people go get the book, Flip Your Script?
BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.
Yeah.
It's on all the different audiobook channels as well.
Awesome. Christy Peel, thank you so much for joining us here in the afternoon shift. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's a good, important conversation.
No doubt. Absolutely. Thank you, Christy. Thank you. We are going to have Ian Leonard live in studio to talk about the winter weather that we experienced yesterday and the snow emergencies that are in place in both Minneapolis and St. Paul right now. Ian Leonard coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. Ian Leonard, he was on our show all day yesterday talking about the snow emergencies and all the winter weather that was in place. Now we're very fortunate to have him back here in studio. Ian, welcome back. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a question.
Okay.
Do I get a bump in pay for yesterday? I mean, is there a burger bonus? Maybe a donut bonus?
Did you know this is a fact? Did you know that this was the third highest rated Fox 9 show on streaming platforms yesterday? The afternoon shift, and a big part of that. And
Hot dog.
Paul says it. Paul told me this before the show. Every time that you are on air, and I'm not just saying this to butter you up. Every time you were on air, the viewers just spiked. I'm sure they're spiking right now. People know it.
We've gone up 3. It's my wife and my 2 daughters. Yes.
Yes.
No, thank you. No, that's kind. The kind of information that I deliver is the kind of information that can be very, very important at times.
Yeah.
And so you take that. You take that on when you get into meteorology, but you also realize there's many, many times when what I'm saying is almost like video wallpaper. Yeah, dude, we get it. It's sunny and 70. Go away. I'm fishing. Or but when we talk, I mean, did you drive yesterday?
I did.
Was it awful?
It was. It was horrible. If I would have left at 4 o'clock, I think it would have been worse than leaving at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because 5 o'clock, it got cut down by 15 minutes from when it was at 4. But it wasn't fun, especially for a driver that doesn't know how to drive in this weather. It wasn't an enjoyable experience.
I think we should take, we can do a lot with these little tiny cameras we have now. I think the next time it snows, and it's not a big snow, one of those snows where people are like, but if it's just a little bit of a snow, I want to take you to like a parking lot. And teach you how to do donuts, teach you how to skid, I did this with my daughters, and just teach you these little subtle nuances, not reckless, but little nuances. What happens when between the gas and the brake and the steering wheel and how much you do of each. Yeah. I got you. I'll take care of you. It'll be fun. We'll use your car just in case we crash.
Okay, please. I'm trying to keep my car spotless here. Wait, you're talking about bringing somebody into a parking lot to learn how to skid. Is this? I'm for real though. Is this really something that you teach people?
Absolutely.
Really?
If you're not think about everything in life.
Yeah.
You learn how to, not so much anymore, but balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do that, you'd be like, I don't have any money. I don't know what happened. Right? Somebody taught you. Yeah. You learned something about that at some point. Yeah. When it comes to knowing how to, here's a good one, know how to iron. A lot of guys, I travel with guys and they're like, oh, I got to iron something. And they're doing this. And, oh, no, I burned my shirt. You're like, did nobody ever stop to teach you how to do something as simple as iron? So think about this. If you don't learn what a skid feels like, how to use the gas, how the brake, how the steering wheel reacts when you're skidding, what are you going to do when you're actually skidding? Yeah. So these are important things, and I'm here. I'm here to be your winter buddy to take care of you.
I'm going to jump in here.
Yes, Paul.
I don't know. Can Ian hear me? Has Ian got?
He cannot.
He
no.
cannot. Okay.
I don't know.
But
I have a translator though right here next to me, Paul.
What I want to know.
He speaks Australian.
What I want to know is if you could teach us how to do this. I've got a clip that I'm going to play.
Okay.
And I want to know whether Ian can take us out and teach us how to do this.
I'll just pretend I'm
listening. A lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hit play and watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
What is that?
So
what are they doing there?
That's so good. I first of all, let me be the father, the safety dad here.
Yeah.
Kids, don't try that at home.
Yeah.
Now, being hypocritical, because my friends and I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And people say, oh, it gets cold here. I'm like, you don't know cold. Or people say it gets snowy here. I'm like, you don't know it's snowy. My friend had a really old Suburban that he inherited from his father. And we used to get, after we closed the cabin for the winter, we'd bring home a water ski tow rope and some old water skis. This is way before snowboards. Yeah. And we would rip around the neighborhood and do exactly that. But please, children, don't try this at home.
Don't try. Let's see this clip one more time here.
It's really good.
This is. Yeah, that doesn't look safe to me.
It's not. It's totally unsafe. And that's why
skiing with a car,
on cement. There's a thin layer of snow, but if you fall, it's not good.
No.
I think I love this. I love to tell people, hey, man, there's a lot going on here. 4 hard seasons. Always make sure that you embrace the forecast. Yeah. That's maybe a bit of a bear hug into the forecast. Maybe we can back off on that one.
Yeah. You know what? One thing I really learned from you yesterday was the term clipper. I always thought clipper is just kind of a ship or whatever. I didn't realize that was a winter weather term. And and I said it at the beginning of the show today, the real belt of the clipper really ended up being Interstate 94. I think you alluded to it.
Yeah.
Everything north of 94 hit hard. Anything south of 94 kind of caught the sail.
So think back in the old shipping days. A clipper was the fastest ship.
That's right.
A clipper storm moves very, very fast. I mean, think about it. It wasn't snowing at around noon. And then, boom, the wind, the snow, the rain, the mix, last night, the snizzle. That's snow and drizzle for you kids at home.
Is that a Snoop Dogg term, snizzle?
That's an Ian Leonard term.
Ian Leonard term. Okay.
Not everything comes from Snoop. But, and then by 8 p.m., it was done.
Yeah.
So it's a very quick hitter. It generally comes with some big winds and some massive variant of snow totals.
Yeah.
So, a clipper is, look at me. I'm dropping knowledge bombs all over this place.
I love it. I was learning and I was able to reference that on the air today.
Let's talk about snow emergencies.
Okay, yes.
Because I think anybody who hasn't lived here for any amount of time says, oh my gosh, it's a snow emergency.
That's me.
Here's what it means.
Okay.
In some of the smaller urban landscapes, I mean, think about parts of St. Paul and think about parts of Minneapolis, where back in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, the roads were built very narrow in the community. So now you've got plenty of people living in those houses. You got 3 or 4 people in a house. There's a couple of cars per home. The back alley is almost impassable with snow, plus there's already a car in the driveway back there. You park on the street. Now, because we had snow, we've got to clear that snow. So a snow emergency, and this is really important, if you live in either Minneapolis or St. Paul and you're new, I'm begging, I'm pleading, go online and search wherever you are, Minneapolis or St. Paul, snow emergency. It will tell you what happens. And depending on whether you're odd or even address, you will have to have your car off the street so the plows can come and clear. I mean, these are very narrow roads. So with cars on either side, the plow can't even get down the middle. Here's where it's important. If you don't adhere to these snow emergency rules, the odd, the even, removing your car just for 12 hours, your car will get towed. And I don't think there are many things as frustrating as, okay, goodbye, honey, I'm off to work.
Where's my car?
Where's my car? Where are all the cars? Wow, the street sure is plowed. I mean, these are all things that would happen. So, it's just, it can be really frustrating when that happens to you. But it's all about maintaining snow-free streets and therefore emergency clear zones for fire trucks and police cars and ambulances to be able to navigate the roads properly. That's really what a snow emergency is.
Yeah, and so when, if you can find more information about this online, are those trucks, like the freeway, for example, today, totally fine?
Right.
I don't want to reveal exactly where I live, but I was driving through Minneapolis city streets, weren't great before I got to the freeway.
No.
Why is that the case? There's such stark difference between the two.
The first thing that happens, so let's go back. Last year on this date, we had to this date about 1.5 inches. It already melted. The year before to this date, we'd had about 3 inches. Most of that had melted. So all of a sudden, people are walking around, walking tall, being like, hey, December's not so bad here in Minnesota. Well, all of a sudden, here comes this year, boom. And people are like, this is crazy. I've never seen this much snow. And I think we have weather memory is very, very short. So now we're edging in on 14 inches, which I'll be honest with you, it's just my dad, the way my parents are from England, my dad would say, it's a right proper December. And that's exactly what we've got now. So it's not out of the realm of an average amount of snow. Now, when you pick up, say, 3, 4, 5 inches of snow, the first things that are plowed are the major roadways. Things like all of the interstates, even some, like 169, 394, 494, Highway 7. Those are the major routes. Those get plowed first, and then it filters down to the smaller roads. And it also becomes more incumbent not only on MnDOT, but on the local plowers for, here, we're right here, we're in Eden Prairie. So the city of Eden Prairie plows the city of Eden Prairie's roads. So they're always going to go major down to minor. If you live on a little tiny road somewhere in the middle of, insert city name here out of all of the Twin Cities, yours is going to be last. Yeah. And that's nothing more than the fact that, it's what's good for the many rather than just a few. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're on the interstate, you're like, boy, the roads don't seem so bad. And then you turn off the interstate and you're going through a neighborhood and you're like, this is terrible. And it's kind of rutted. Yeah. And so it's all about ease of motion.
Yeah. Another highlight of all your weather presentations yesterday was the increased cold temperatures that are going to be coming in. You infamously said Saturday's high is going to be 1 degree, that singular degree. Why is that the case that we could go ahead?
I just want to tell you that I've dropped my high for Saturday. Oh, now go on.
Wait, you dropped it?
What? I did? No way.
It's
I
not
did.
1 anyway?
No.
Is it 0 or is it negative?
So I came right from doing charts. I came here. I will tell you that we're dropping into the freezer tomorrow. My high temperature's, I don't know, around 8 degrees. As we wake up Saturday morning, and we get through 8 degrees tomorrow, maybe 7 degrees on Friday. Wake up Saturday morning. Wake up temperature 8 below. Wind chill. Wake up temperature Saturday morning. I've got you right here. Wake up wind chill is about 25 below. And I say that with a chuckle, but this is where, your winter fun and making snowmen. Oh, it's so great. We're getting ready for Christmas. This is where the weather turns dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? You're outside. You're waiting for a bus. The bus doesn't come because there's an accident and a road's closed. It's no fault of the bus company. You're outside and you're driving a car, and for some reason, it could be a brand new car. Suddenly it stalls. It doesn't work. Well, you went out the door because you're in a heated garage and you're wearing that. Yeah. And you're wearing a pair of sneakers. And if you're like me, you don't wear socks.
Even during the winter, you don't wear socks? I know. No, even during the winter, you got no socks on, even in the winter time?
Never.
Is that just that's just your thing?
I don't wear socks. I find them.
I don't think anybody knew this about
I find them constricting. Oh. You know what? When I went through my concussion, I did start wearing socks for about 6 months. Yeah. My daughters would buy me wild color socks. I was, there's a lot going on here, and it kind of gave me some weird comfort. Yeah. But no, I don't wear socks.
Oh goodness. Okay. But even on a day like Saturday, still sockless.
Well, I'd wear boots. But there's no socks in the boots.
No socks.
Yeah, so we wake up at 25 below. Think about it. I said your car breaks down or you're outside. And maybe you're outside and you're having fun. And you don't realize because you are having fun in the cold, it's less than 15 minutes to develop frostbite on unprotected skin. So look, at this time of year with dangerously cold wind chills, I always tell people that fashion... See you later, fashion. I'm putting everything. I mean, you're covered. Yeah. Everywhere. And also think about pets. You let out, my dog Baxter. I let out Baxter in the morning when it's that cold. I literally let him out, watch him do his business, and let's go, buddy. We're going inside. Yeah. It's dangerous for your pets. It's dangerous for everybody. Yeah. And then people talk about wind chill. They say, well, okay, so. Let me get this straight. It's going to be colder than the actual temperature. How does that work? Well, wind chill was developed by Canadians by taking volunteers and putting them in a wind tunnel and having them walk on a treadmill. And it's a subjective index. In other words, it's not hard and fast science. But you are exponentially colder as the wind blows. We have a little micro layer right next to our skin that our bodies are able to warm up. Yeah. Well, if that micro layer keeps getting whisked away, our body is using more energy to try and warm it up. And when it doesn't warm up, we get colder. Think about this. When you get out of a pool, and even on a warm summer day, like, I got the chill. Yeah. Because the water is evaporating. And as the water from your skin evaporates, it steals heat. We call it evaporative cooling. Well, there's no water, but as that thin layer of warm air is gone from your skin, you feel colder. Buildings don't feel wind chill. Inanimate objects, cars, don't feel wind chill. A car feels the temperature of the air. Yeah. But we as humans and animals feel wind chill.
Yeah. You brought up your dog Baxter. You concerned about your cats in the extreme cold.
My cats don't go outside. Mike, are you kidding me? My cat, if I walk into my house right now, my cat will be like this on the couch. And my cat will be like, oh, hello, you're home. Feed me. and brush me. I mean, my cat is so spoiled. It's pretty crazy.
I love it. All right, so you said extreme cold this weekend.
Yeah.
But another thing you said yesterday, though, was that as we get closer to the Christmas time holiday, it's actually going to go up, you said, and the rest of the month is going to be kind of mild.
You know, when we start looking at the charts, and look, when you have anybody, including me, tell you in 7 to 10 days, this is going to happen. There's a lot of hope in a forecast that far away, and I admit that freely. But when we look at the long-range charts, we talk about trends. And the trend right now would be for us to, and here's the problem. When you use the word warm, I think people go, warm up, great, I'll wear a T-shirt. No, it's December, so there is a limitation to our warm. But most of the long-range charts before Christmas try and pop us into the upper 20s and low 30s. Okay. For December, that's gorgeous. So take it with a grain of salt and just know that right now it is a trend. And I'm just trying to be your weather buddy. I'm just trying to give you a little hope. A little hope as we all head into the weekend where temperatures are bone-rattling cold. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You didn't actually say your high temperature for Saturday. You just said the wake up.
Oh, okay. My high temperature Saturday is now 1 below.
It's not even going to get to 0.
Look, you know what? Here's the thing. We're either friends or we're not, okay? You can't just pick and choose when I give you a nice forecast and suddenly I'm your buddy. No, Saturday is going to be brutally cold. And, you know, this is one of those things, too, where we tell people, look, if you don't have to go out, don't. And I think that becomes sort of like a broken record over time. But really, when we're talking about dangerously cold temperatures, just consider what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And always remember that the next day is going to change. And the day after, there's going to be time to do other things. And if you can sit at home and kind of do like, what is it, the cat in the hat, where the two kids are sitting at the window, you know, like,
That's the day to do it.
That's the day to do it. Yeah.
Ian Leonard, we so thank you for coming back on today. You were a highlight of the show yesterday, and again, a highlight of our show today. Thank you so much. We appreciate
I have a couple of demands to come back.
Okay, let's hear them.
My demands are simple. I need flavored blasted goldfish.
Yes.
And anybody associated with the show cannot be wearing socks.
No socks.
No, it has to be a sock-free environment.
Okay. I'll relay that. I'll relay that back to Paul Bogan. There's got your shoes. There's no smell to your shoes without socks. I know. I didn't volunteer this.
My feet don't smell.
God, I'm really doing this, aren't I?
They don't smell.
No, it smells actually like new.
My feet don't smell.
They smell like new. Those aren't new shoes, are they?
No, they're I don't know. They're just buckle loafers. I get a pair a year.
That's amazing. Those shoes literally have kind of a new shoe smell to them.
Can you imagine?
I'm not joking.
And then live on the air, he smelled the guy's shoes.
I did. I've never done that before on the afternoon shift. Today
but I mean, I wouldn't have done that to you if they were like, oh my God. And then we'd say, oh, Adam fainted. Quick, get him up off the ground.
Ian, we do appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
It's always fun coming. Thank you.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's
I
fun.
appreciate it.
We're going to have more to come from the afternoon shift after those.
If you don't smell.
Welcome back to the afternoon shift. This is just breaking news, and I'm kind of taking Paul by a little bit of surprise here, and I apologize for that. For any football fans that might be out there, certainly there's a lot of University of Minnesota football fans that are out there, Big Ten football fans that are out there, especially in this part of the country. Some major college football news just breaking just now. University of Michigan college football coach Sherrone Moore fired by the school. Reports of an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. This is a very big story in the world of sports here. We'll see what ends up becoming of it. But University of Michigan coach Sherrone Moore just fired by the school for an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Of course, college football, the landscape of it is changing every single day. As the story develops here in Big Ten country, we will continue to bring you the most of it. Paul, I know I was kind of just taking there on a little bit of a topsy-turvy. I'm not sure what we had planned for this.
Well, we are going to recap on our story, big story out of Minneapolis, the bathroom shortage. Just kind of breaking that down. It's kind of on a lot of people's radar. But while that's on, I think what we'll do is we will try and bring some more news about what you just broke just then.
Right on. So sounds good.
After this clip, we will try and bring you some stuff about that firing.
Yes.
Back to you.
Yep, this is Adam Dunnick, the president and the CEO of the Minneapolis Downtown Council, talking about the push for more bathrooms in downtown Minneapolis. Let's revisit that conversation just right now. Downtown Council, Adam, welcome to the afternoon shift. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Adam, can you just tell us more? What's the problem going on right now in downtown with the need for more public restrooms, and what's the Downtown Council doing to take action about it?
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about significantly for a number of years with our businesses, with our members, as we also operate the Downtown Improvement District and try to serve the public. We actually operate one of the public restrooms on Nicollet Mall in our community space in the Gavaday Plaza. And we have Ike kiosks, which are sort of wayfinding devices. They're electronic digital billboards that if you are out walking around, you can check for your nearest restaurant or public restrooms or where how to catch the bus or transit or where to park close. Those sorts of resources are just a touch click away at the Ike kiosk. But something we hear consistently is there aren't enough public bathrooms, and there's not a very good way to find the ones that do exist.
Yeah, and so where are some of the hot spots, if you will, that people that have to go and maybe don't have another place to go, where are they typically going?
I would say, especially along Nicollet Mall, it's places like the Hennepin County Library. They oftentimes go to a retailer or a restaurant. So if Target is nearby at 9th and Nicollet, they'll go in there, or just the nearest building. Our facilities at 6th and Nicollet, but I think there's this misconception that there should be there's misunderstanding rather that there should be bathrooms everywhere. We think that there ought to be, but the question is who provides them. And so there's a little bit of at times finger pointing between should the buildings open up all their space, should the city or maybe Metro Transit, the transit agency, provide some of those public restrooms, because it's a lot of work and resources into maintaining and covering them in terms of an operations standpoint.
Adam, do you see it for these private companies that you mentioned there, Target, different restaurants downtown? Do you see it as a civic responsibility of theirs to be able to provide restroom access to those that need it most? I know there would be a lot of people that would probably disagree with that too.
I just think that there's an important both humanity angle to it as well as a hospitality angle. I have helped countless people in my own time here the last 2 years doing this job. I've helped countless people go to the bathroom in my building, where I've walked them a couple buildings over, seen them on the street. I think I'm a little bit approachable because some people recognize my face, but other people just kind of know that I'm around downtown a lot. So people say like, hey, do you know where the nearest restroom is? And I pointed them to a public one if I'm closer to that. But if I'm just as close to my own building, I'll bring them and badge them into my restroom and let them go there. And these are oftentimes travelers too. It's people that have been driving in from greater Minnesota, or you're coming in from Iowa or Wisconsin, you're coming in to see a football game or taking a show at the theater. And if what they experience is coming down here and having a really hard time going to the restroom, that's not a good first impression of a city. Now, some people might say, well, if you're going to stay at a hotel or go patronize a restaurant or bar, just go to the bathroom there. That's sometimes easier said than done. There's a lot of public space around here. And again, There is some public restrooms that people aren't as aware of. There's City Hall and the Hennepin County Government Center. There's a fair amount of restrooms all over different parts of downtown, and a number of folks do make their restrooms available. Saint Basilica comes to mind, and so do some of the other churches. Oftentimes, will allow people in to use the restroom. But I think that there could be a way for us to have more access. The other thing I'll say is we work with other cities and downtowns, and other downtowns have seen an increased use of some publicly available restrooms that are outside, that are self-cleaning, and there's a safety component to them that from an operational standpoint aren't as costly as they've been. And so hopefully some of this evolving technology will help groups like ours. We could even invest in our own. We have had a public restroom out on PB Plaza, which we're responsible for maintaining and operating. So we've had that. But we also have a team of ambassadors that have extra eyes and ears on it and know what's happening there. That's, I think, the harder part for a business to commit to. If you're running a coffee shop or a bar or restaurant, I have sympathy for them if they're already short-staffed and their folks need to do a lot of things. Guarding a public restroom or being responsible for a restroom is just an added expense.
Yeah, and you bring up places downtown that do offer that. You mentioned the Basilica. I know St. Olaf Church also prides itself on having a public restroom available for people to use, and I've seen that work in that ministry myself firsthand. I think there's a lot of people that, Adam, that would say, the building more of public restrooms downtown might lead to some people using them for nefarious reasons, maybe some drug usages or whatnot. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, and that's been our experience too. And I mentioned that when I spoke to the newspaper about the story. So that's not an unfounded fear. I think that's where either potentially technology or additional resources by the way of hospitality ambassadors or people that can check on the restrooms. Again, if we are in a position as an organization to help to raise the dollars to do that, right now we don't really have that in our budget, but longer term, as we think about ways to make downtown more inviting and accessible, that might be something we take on if the cost point comes down low enough with some of these newer publicly available restrooms. They kind of look like they're almost like they look portable. They are more, you can get them in a more of a permanent structure, but they are mobile. But nobody enjoys the experience of going to use a porta potty. We use those for events at times, either events that we have historically put on, but also when we're hosting like Taste of Minnesota or other larger scale events in downtown Minneapolis, we have those. And that's not a great experience. And it is an opportunity for people to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And that's where the safety element comes in. And that's where we have to have resources to operate and maintain.
You bring about the phrase cost point here. So what would be the cost of this? Or what kind of dollars are we looking at to build these? And would the money be coming out of taxpayer dollars as well?
The proposal that the city council advanced, I believe, was around $700,000. And I think it depends on what it costs to either purchase these, I don't know how to best describe them other than sort of portable bathroom units. That's one thing to explore. The other thing to explore is to talk with the units of government, the city, the county. Metro Transit is another example, because another thing that is not always discussed about this impacts not only people that are visiting here or people that just come downtown. It also impacts people who are working. So if you're driving a cab or an Uber or Lyft, if you're a Metro Transit bus or train operator, they have bathroom breaks that they have to try to figure out logistically. And so if you're doing a job like that and you're working consistently, having that accessibility in a place that's close to a light rail platform or where a lot of bus shelters are could make some sense for people that are working too. And so I think thinking through how to approach public agencies is one part of it, and then thinking about potentially our role longer term. The business community already does a fair amount the way that the DID is structured to provide additional clean, safe services from the ambassadors all the way up to some other safety programs that we run. We're willing to potentially put some resources into it and think about that as something that we support. But it's also important to us that it's something that Hennepin County, the other partners, are supporting as well.
That was my conversation with Adam Dunnick, the president and CEO of the Minneapolis Downtown Council, all about the push for an increased a number of public restrooms in downtown Minneapolis. If you want to see that full conversation, just go to our website, fox9.com, or go to YouTube and search Fox 9 Afternoon Shift. You'll be able to see that full interview in both of those places. Also, of course, on the Fox Local app. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break here and come back and try to break down this breaking news coming out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Michigan fires football coach Sharon Moore for an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. That is a major story here in Big Ten football country. We're going to take a quick break, get to that story quickly before we let you go and send you on to the Fox 9 5 o'clock news. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the afternoon shift. We're about to send you on to the Fox 9 5 o'clock news with Simone and Amy here shortly. But before we get to that, there's some major breaking news here in Big Ten country coming out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Michigan fired football coach Sharon Moore just minutes ago after finding evidence of, and I quote, an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Sharon Moore, 39 years old. He signed a 5-year contract with Michigan with a base annual salary of $5.5 million per year. Athletic Director Ward Manuel said, and I quote again, this conduct constitutes a clear violation of university policy, and U of M maintains zero tolerance for such behavior. Again, University of Michigan firing their football coach Sharon Moore just minutes ago, citing an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Paul, we're in Big Ten country. The University of Minnesota plays Michigan, not every year anymore because of how big the Big Ten has grown, but their rivalry is called the Little Brown Jug Trophy rivalry, and this is a pretty big story in the world of college football here, with Sharon Moore being let go by the University of Michigan with an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Paul, is there any sort of Australian equivalence to such a story like this?
To the Big Ten, I don't think that there's really anything that no one really gets on board college or university football that I'm aware of in Australia. It's certainly not as big as it is here. So I don't know if there is anything that's sort of comparable to that.
Yeah.
But shocking to hear that going on.
Yeah, it is. And of course, a huge Michigan alumni presence here in the Twin Cities as well. So we'll see what ends up shaking of this story, and we'll have much more to come on it. Just want to say thank you to everybody for joining our show today. We covered so many different topics here, between downtown bathrooms in Minneapolis, to Ozempic, to a Charlie Brown Christmas celebrating its 60th anniversary, to talking about the Australian social media ban, and of course getting the insights on Ian Leonard. Learning today that Ian Leonard, the chief meteorologist of Fox 9, never wears socks. Who would have known that? We were very fortunate to have him in studio today. Like I said, the 5 o'clock news, or pardon me, the 5 o'clock news here at Fox 9 is starting right now with Simone and Amy. Don't go anywhere. It's coming right next.